talk about some of the pivot points in your career, good and bad, but what do you think when you think about what really took you to the next level at some key moments? What comes to mind?
Oh gosh, I love that. Yeah, I mean, early in my career and early in many people's career, and particularly when you're underrepresented, I felt the need to prove myself and be an expert and show up with the answers. And I found myself, and I got a lot. I had a lot of success from doing that and working really hard, digging deep, being intellectually curious, and educating people, making people smarter in a meeting kind of thing. And the biggest pivot point was just a wonderful piece of advice and coaching that I had received from a coach I was working with
Mm-hmm.
actually. And it really opened up my ability to be a scaled leader. And the advice was to be more invested in other people's success than your own. And if you can show up and stare someone in their face, see them, meet them where they are, and be genuinely invested in them succeeding. And if more people did that, the multiplier effect of it and the flow of that is something very powerful. And it was a pretty significant turning point for me. And it took me, admittedly, I will tell you, it took me about the better part of a year to really process that and really live that value. It wasn't, some people are easier than others to sit across the table from and say, I'm very invested in your
Well, it's
success.
interesting because what
to
does
really
it
work
look
at this.
like? In a sense, you still have to be, you're the boss. It
Yes.
is difficult to do. I'm intrigued by the fact that you had a coach. I remember being at an event, it was a women's event. And when I asked in the room, first of all, how many people had gone to, some aspect of all female education, a lot of hands went up. When I asked how many people had an executive coach, almost all the hands went up. Very few people watching this will have an executive coach. At what point in your career did you get one? And how did you get one? Did you ask or did they assign one to you saying, Laura, we see great things for you and here's your coach?
Oh gosh, great question. I mean, I've generally always raised my hand for development, and so I have sought out coaching and self development and improvement for sure. And I early on, and I've had many coaches that have served me in different with different needs and for different purposes
Mm.
in my career. Early on, it was perhaps more mechanical, where I needed to work on time management and how to organize a process. To, even recently, it's really around how you show up as a leader, how you show up as a human being for the creative people that you want to lead and enable. And so, some of the work I've done in the recent years has really been around personal development, because as a leader, you show up as a whole person and you need to live an examined life, I believe, to be
Mm-hmm.
an effective leader. And I have a very expansive learning mindset and the intellectual curiosity. And it's something that deeply motivates me and fulfills me. So I'm very lucky that my company in electronic arts has always supported me in doing that, because I get a lot from it and a lot of energy from that. And I really believe that if you show up in a room and you're the expert and you do all the talking, you have so few options, really. And when you work with incredibly intelligent, motivated, inspired, creative people, I always want the feedback and the energy and that collaboration to happen. And I think that to do that as a leader, you have to be very self-aware. And to your point, you're right. As a leader, at some point you have to make decisions, set direction, set strategy, help create the framework for people. And I always seek to do that in the most informed way I possibly can. And
The
coaching has really helped me with
the
that.
higher up you go, the more you do delegate. I'm curious. We're talking about pivot points almost in the abstract. When you think about sort of your core, this does sound like a therapy session. When you think about like your core strengths as a leader that you feel you've developed that have really helped you, what would you point to? I mean, I'm assuming being driven is certainly one. Being curious. What do you think has propelled you really to, grow in this one company, but grow as a leader in the industry too?
My belief in the human potential of our creative leaders and people around us has really propelled me to evolve my leadership approach. I love the idea of lifting people up, inspiring them, putting a superhero cape on them, and letting them have career-defining experiences here. Now, that said, I take leadership and accountability very seriously. And the way that I show up with our teams is I speak with conviction and passion about ideas and possibilities, but I hold them loosely. And the idea that people feel like they are supported and that ideas are theirs or that they're ours together collectively is far more important to me than being the one person in the room. You can never be smarter than the creative collective in your organization. So really deeply considering the scale and the power and the potential of the people in your organization will surprise you and help you all realize potential that you didn't think possible and wouldn't be possible on your own.